Okay, all right, let's begin then. Well, I have the honor of being the host of the meeting. So I'm Dada Jitendrananda. I'm a monk of Anandamarga. I mainly teach yoga and meditation, and I'm talking to you from where I live here in Stanthorpe, which is in Queensland, in upland, rugged granite country. I run a retreat meditation center and organic farm here. And I've been involved in progressive politics in New Zealand for about 20 years now. I lived in New Zealand from 2010 to 2020, and in that time I worked closely with Bruce Dyer, our, our delegate for Nelson, and I participated in organizing globalization or localization. That was the one in Tapatiranga Marae, was it, Bruce?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And a few years later, Social Forum Aotearoa, which introduced the global social forum movement to New Zealand. But even before that, since about 1980, I was aware of Bruce and his efforts to introduce the progressive ideas of Prout, the socioeconomic system of Prout, to New Zealand. Um, and so I'm aware that our present effort here now is part of a long line of efforts over decades. Um, and so I'm honored to be here at this point of the process. And I think there's never been a better time for introducing these ideas. It used to be that, say, about 20 years ago, I remember
Thank you.
I remember writing a small article for a little local newspaper in Wellington about proud ideas. And immediately the compulsive response came back through the letters of the editor page, um, branding it as communism. So as soon as you started to question the capitalist narrative, you were immediately assigned to the opposite end of the spectrum, which was communism, and nobody imagined anything in between, or anything that was an alternative to those two poles. But now it's part of the conversation that, it's generally accepted that the wealth distribution in society is very unbalanced, and that unbalance affects everybody, affects the economy, and in doing so affects the well-being of everybody. So this socioeconomic system that the Progressive Party is based on is called PROUT, and it stands for the Progressive Utilization Theory. And it could be described in a nutshell as the economics of well-being. So, in other words, well-being focused economics. So what does that mean, refocusing the economy towards well-being? Human beings have physical, mental, and spiritual potential. And for us to lead a happy and fulfilling life, we have to have a balanced development of all of those three parts of our being, because they're all interconnected. So the first job then of the economic system is to provide access to the minimum requirements of life if we are to live a happy and fulfilling life, and if we're to be able to focus on real happiness, real progress, real development of all our potential, then we need to have access to the minimum necessities of life. So Proud starts by looking at that and giving priority to that. That's the first area of focus. So already Proud is a departure from the socioeconomic reality that we're more familiar with today, which is that, yes, capitalism will say, sure, we want everybody to live a happy and fulfilling life. And the best way to go about that is to remove any impediments to people earning money. There should be absolutely no ceiling on the amount of wealth that anybody can accumulate. And in that way, we can ensure that everybody has access to the ingredients of a happy and fulfilling life. But the history of capitalism shows that that's not the case, and I think we don't need to dwell too long on that, because I think it's widely recognized that it doesn't work like that. The best way to ensure that everybody has the ingredients of a happy and fulfilling life, the best way to ensure that everybody has access to the minimum necessities of life, is to focus on getting them access to the minimum necessities of life, and not try and convince them that that will be an outcome of allowing wealthy people to accumulate more wealth. We know that it doesn't work. So Proud starts off by focusing actually on providing the minimum requirements of life. So one implication of that is that we already have a job description of government. If I were to ask you right now, what is the job description of government? What could you actually hold government accountable for if they didn't perform according to, like, everybody who has a job description, and you're expected to perform according to certain fixed criteria. So applying that standard to the government, it's very difficult to actually find a job description, because the government makes the laws, they are the legislators, and they haven't tied themselves in to any job description that they could be held accountable for. Especially not in terms of the well-being of the public or the environment.
Although they have signed up to the UN Charter, which covers some of those points.
Okay, yes, that's true. But if you actually look, if somebody died of starvation in the streets of Wellington, what legislation could you activate to hold the government responsible for that? I don't think there is anything that would. I don't think you could hold anybody accountable for that. But anyway, I don't want to get into it's kind of we can have discussions on finer points afterwards. But essentially, what I'm saying is that under Prout, the government will be responsible for ensuring the well-being of everybody and of the environment. And that will be defined in specific terms. So if we were to define it in terms of the well-being of people need access to the 5 basic necessities of life: food, clothing, shelter, education, and medical care. So it will be the government's job to ensure that everybody has access to those basic necessities. And the government would do that by having a full employment policy. And so not only would the government have to guarantee that everybody has a job, and a job that is commiserate with their qualifications and aspirations, but the government would also have to ensure that the wage or the salary that the person earned gave them access to the minimum necessities of life. So it's not the government's job to give handouts. It doesn't, of course, eliminate the need for a social welfare system. Of course, that must be in place. But what it does is it takes away the this um, this sense that having a job is some kind of a it's it's something that could you may or may not have in 5 or 10 years. It's something that there's a certain degree of insecurity associated with it, especially today. But under Prout, because the whole focus is on well-being and the understanding that in order to secure that well-being, we need to have employment for everybody. So the government is actually focused on these ends and not seeing them as outcomes that may or may not eventuate when the top tier of companies and individuals in the economy have taken their lion's share, which is the way it is at the moment. So how does the government then ensure all around full employment? Well, the government has to have an incentive for that, and the incentive for the government must be revenue. Now, under Prout, there is no income tax. So where does the government get its revenue? Under Prout, the government would levy revenue at the point of production. So the government has a vested interest in ensuring that there's a healthy, vital, productive sector in the economy. So a proud government would not be inclined to export jobs overseas, would not be inclined to take the view that just because you can exploit workers in some other part of the world and get them to manufacture stuff under conditions that would not be acceptable in New Zealand, that's economically desirable to do that. That's not the way that Prout looks at it. Prout looks at always from the lens of welfare, and so it's in New Zealand's interest to have a healthy, vibrant manufacturing sector, and so the government would pursue policy that ensures that. Another policy of Prout that works towards welfare and particularly towards equitable distribution of wealth is the emphasis that Prout gives to the cooperative sector. There's a lot to be said about cooperatives, but the basic things to know about cooperatives are that there is a mechanism within the way that co-op operates that ensures that there is a ratio between the lowest paid and the highest paid worker. That ratio under capitalist system that we're more familiar with, that it's in the hundreds, maybe thousands. Under Prout, it would be something in the region of 3, 4, 5, something like that. But the workers in the enterprise themselves would fix that ratio. So the person who sweeps the floor, if they earn 100, it means that the manager, the general manager, doesn't earn more than 500. And if they have to increase the general manager's salary, maybe to attract a better general manager, then the first job of that new general manager would be to raise the income of everybody else to bring it back within that ratio that everybody's comfortable with. And the other aspect of the cooperative, of course, is that all of the workers are shareholders and nobody else. You don't have outside shareholders. So all of the workers have a vested interest in the well-being of that enterprise. And psychologically, it's a much different experience to work with other cooperators within an enterprise that you are a part owner of than it is to work for somebody on whose balance sheet you are a liability, and as soon as they get a chance to get rid of you, they will. So in a co-op system, the co-op system works on the basis of it's set up to work for the well-being of the members, the well-being of the workers. And so it is very much in line with Prout's economy. And so that's why most enterprises under a Prout system would be cooperative, would be cooperatives. So it's a very effective mechanism in spreading wealth around, getting more wealth into more hands, which means that more people having more money means more stimulus to the economy. And that, after all, is the lifeblood of the economy. And so a large co-op sector would go a long way towards making the economy more stable and avoiding the concentrations of wealth that create recessions and depressions regularly in regular cycles in the economy. So that's basically my intro. The main takeaway is that Prout, upon the system, the economic system that the Progressive Party bases its policy on, that it is focused directly on well-being. It brings the focus of well-being into the economy directly, and so whatever policy that the Progressive Party develops will always be for the well-being of the people. It will always reflect the well-being of the people and our fellow traveling non-human forms. So I would like now to introduce our two candidates, Bruce Dyer, who will be standing in the Nelson electorate, and Michael Walker, who will be standing in the Mana electorate. So Bruce, would you like to go first?
Sure, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Dada, for hosting the event, and thank you all for joining in. So I thought, on a personal note, just give you an idea of where my journeys. From living in provincial New Zealand, Gisborne, Wanganui, New Plymouth, before heading off to university in Wellington, where I started looking at economics, strangely enough. And but the pivotal point in my life probably was when I did start to learn to meditate, and as part of that, learned about the philosophy that Dada's just outlined, the progressive utilization theory. And that provided a whole new dimension to the economics that that you are generally provided with in university settings, even today. but in most of my adult life, I've sought to ground the theory of that this theory that underpins the Progressive Party policies. And so in my work, I've been, for the last 23 years, I've been managing a loan trust that makes loans to small businesses, 300 of them, loans totaling $2.5 million with a 98% recovery rate. And so that's been a very worthwhile and both worthwhile in terms of the effect that it's had, the impact that it's had on people needing finance, but also it's been worthwhile in terms of recognizing the scope and the need to recycle wealth within the region, which is so. So that was as far as work. Whereas where I'm living, I've sought to live in a spiritually based community, and currently, while that's not strictly the case, it still provides a resource for retreats and events for Proutists, actually. As far as study is concerned, I recently did a degree that looked at how the Nelson region could become more self-reliant, which again is a plank of the Prout theory, that is, of how can regions and countries, for that matter, become sufficiently self-reliant so that they're interacting with the rest of the world or the rest of the country from a position of strength. You know, and that is that's been highlighted. The value of that approach is being highlighted currently, where our borders have been so dramatically affected by this pandemic. So the question is, well, why a political party now? And I have to say, I've been inspired by the emergence, well, at least in India for the last 3 decades or more, there's been political parties that have had Prout as the basis of their, that has been inspired by Prout. 10 years ago in Germany, the Humane World Party became established, and that's been operating ever since. As we speak, there's the emergence of a party in Portugal in addition to our own. So I get that sense that while we are small fry at the moment, I suggest that it's the vision of the future that we are embarking on. We are giving feet to the vision of the future, and we're grounding that vision. Yeah, and as for, I came across a quote from, or at least I watched Jim Bolger, the former National Party Prime Minister. He was interviewed on a TV series, and he called for a new model. And essentially that's what the Progressive Party is offering. And the new model, the thing that distinguishes that in what way is it a new model, you might ask? Well, the thing that distinguishes it is that holistic approach and the holistic means that in addition to having recognizing that we have a physical and mental dimension, there's also a spiritual dimension. And incorporating that, the three, and in particular spiritual, opens the scope for quite a transformative development in society. Yeah, and there was a quote from the propounder of Prout, P.R. Saka, a quote that makes explicit what I'm referring to there, and understanding the significance of that spiritual dimension. And he says the ownership of the universe lies with the creator. None of the movable or immovable property of this universe belongs to any particular individual. Everything is the common patrimony of all. We mustn't forget, even for a single moment, that the entire animate world is a vast joint family, and that nature has not assigned any portion of this property to any particular individual. You could be excused for thinking and rightly so, that we've got it pretty wrong. I've just been reading a book by Stiglitz, and he draws attention to the fact that 26 individuals own half their wealth equates with half the wealth of the planet. So we're really out of whack if we place store by what Saka is referring to here. And just Dada's given an indication of some of the policies of the Progressive Party. And I'll just elaborate somewhat there. As far as industry is concerned, there are 3 tiers that we see, and one of them is the businesses that operate largely as in a monopolistic situation. They've got the capacity to set the price, and people can't do anything about it. They've just got to accept the price that's being offered if they want the service, and often that service is a critical service. So businesses in that category would be business that would be managed by the state, local or national. And they would include things like, well, the railways, clearly, telecommunications, probably the energy sector. So that's at one end. At the other end, we've got small businesses. And over 90% of businesses in New Zealand are small businesses. That is to say, businesses that employ up to, say, 9 people. So if they're not providing services or goods that are critical, then they'd operate as they currently are. There'd be no difference. So we've covered the top and the bottom broadly, and in between we've got businesses that include supermarkets and rest homes and dentists and doctors, all providing essential services. These businesses would operate as cooperatives. At the moment, we've got 10% of New Zealand businesses operate cooperatively, but the body that coordinates those businesses is challenged to. It's not widely supported, and it's got 1 or 2 people employed to coordinate the work that they do. Under a proud government, a proud progressive government, that would be expanded significantly. Just one final one, perhaps, as regards housing. The progressive government would see scope for fostering cooperative housing. It's barely on the horizon, barely represented in New Zealand at the moment, in contrast to some European countries. And we would see the state being directly involved in the construction of housing. a rather alarming figure that I've just come across says that in the last 30 years, that's since 1990, and since New Zealand, and in that time, New Zealand's population has increased from 3.3% to close on 5 million. In that time, the total social housing hasn't increased beyond 90,000 houses. So that the provision of social housing, including state housing, community housing provided by councils and community housing providers, hasn't in any way kept pace with the demand for housing. It kept pace with the demand that's reflected in the increase in population. Yeah, and I've just one final thing was that I attended a webinar with other candidates just in the last few days, and when they were talking about how things would, their policies, how the thing that stood out for me was the lack of, or how there was no mention, for example, of cooperatives. There was no mention of how the issues around inequality would be addressed in any substantive way. So the main thing I took away from it, or a thing that I took away from it, was that it's business as usual, actually, for most of the other parties, whereas what we're offering, I see, is reflecting a dramatic shift, which befits the inclusion of a holistic perspective. Yeah, well, thank you for that's what I wanted to say. I'm willing to answer a few questions, if any questions, if you've got the time remaining. Thank you.
Can I make a comment now, Bruce, or do you want to wait till the end?
Yeah, sure. Or Dada, you're focusing it, Dada, so you
Sure.
decide.
I mean, it's a small group, so let's just do it organically. Go ahead, Liz.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The thing is, I have to go in a few minutes. I have to go in about between 5 and 10 minutes. So I'm not new to Prout. My husband studied it alongside Bruce quite extensively when he was alive. So I'm not new to the concepts. I have when you talk about a dynamic change, a quantum leap, that is what's required. And I have a certain age on me already. And what I see is that I think we need to be careful that we don't put all our eggs in the government basket and say, okay, so you do it for us. I think there needs to be a huge shift in individual responsibility, and also to work with the things that already exist. I work quite a lot with a concept that Professor Sir Mason Jury introduced back in the early 80s called Te Whare Tapa Whā, which is a Maori model of well-being, and it is what you spoke of. There's the psychological wall. It's like the 4 walls of the Whanganui. Psychological wall, the physical health wall, the spiritual health wall, and the family health wall. And when I work with that, we usually expand that into social as well as family. So there are things going on, and there are, as Bruce said, there are cooperatives, but only 10% are cooperatives. It's my sense that we have to go and support those people to keep moving out, like the ripple effect in society, that, okay, this is what we've done, because we don't hear enough about those kinds of endeavors to have the country make a difference. And every once in a while, you'll see something on Country Calendar, or maybe even 7 Sharp or something like that. And that to me is where we need to be focusing, to inspire people, because as a fledgling party, all you can do is put out for the future. You know, you're building for the future. I do get that. And yeah, I do embrace your ideas, but I won't, I'll probably vote the way that I have chosen for a major party that will get in. So, and then I'll try to influence my, the person in my electorate to say, what about? Yeah, so that's my comment. I appreciate having been a part of this and been reminded of the Prout philosophy, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks, Liz.
Liz.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Liz. I'll be in touch.
Okay.
I want to add something to that.
Sure.
Before you go, the
Sure.
exciting thing about the Progressive Party is that it's open to all those inputs from other ideas that are holistic. If you check out our constitution, you'll see that we want to be a gathering point for all those ideas. And that's the exciting thing about the Progressive Party in New Zealand, because in New Zealand, we not only have all us proudest, but we also have access to that Indigenous holistic understanding, and
Yes.
even other spiritual or religious understandings as well. So that gives us, you know, a way of realizing that proud is just another element within this holistic way of thinking.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yes.
you know, that's something that really interests me as both a student of Prout and also as I study these other holistic ideas about economics and ways of organizing. So,
Right.
you know, we really need that input from people who can bring those ideas as well.
And it would be good in your talking about your holistic view to reference things like Te Whare Tapa Whā, so that you know, then some other people couldn't prick their ears up and go, oh, yeah, I know about that. And it also embraces the Maori culture while you're at it.
Fantastic.
Okay, I need to.
How do you spell it? Actually?
T-E, Whare, W-H-A-R-E, Tapa, T-A-P-A, Whā, W-H-A, and there's a macron over the A.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Wish you all the best.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Okay. All right. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Mana. Manatosh. You wanna introduce yourself?
Yes.
Is that where you got your name from, Manatosh?
From being in Mana.
An extension of Mana.
It's funny because I got my name from what's that, Dada? Dada Jitendrananda, who's actually doing the Humane World Party in Germany.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
It's all very intimate.
That's very cool.
Is he your Acharya?
It is cool. He's my Acharya.
Gosh.
It's a small world indeed. Shall I go for it?
Go.
Yep.
Sweet. Okay. For me, this all started 36 years ago when I was down in Victoria, university in Wellington, studying economics. And the first year of that, I found out about global climate change, which was a bit of a shock. It was obvious to me, even at that young age, that the existing materialistic economic theories were unsustainable and didn't have the answers to that question, at least not in a timely fashion. That was amplified for me by my, not even my philosophy professor, but the head of the philosophy department coming in one day and saying that the commerce faculty should really have its own business school, because the level of thought was so low that it didn't belong in a university setting, and in fact that it would undermine the academic performance of the university. And when the head of the philosophy department, one of the brightest people in New Zealand, says something like that, you've got to start thinking about it. And so from that point on, under those two influences, I really started to look at the substance of the theories that I was learning in economics. And we forget that economics is actually the study of the choices that we as human beings make. And there's no real attempt in materialist economic thought to actually define the human expression in any real depth or detail. And so they've kickstarted their theories based on saying, oh, we'll get back to that later, sort of thing. Or we just won't even think about that. We'll just think about choices, and we won't think about what it is to be a human being. And that, when I came across Prout, I came across Bubba's work, then that was the first time that I'd ever seen a serious attempt made to answer that question about what it is to be a human being. And if you don't answer that, then you can't qualify the choices that you're making in your economy as a human being. So the first time I read Prout, I was super excited, because that was what I was interested in. And Bubba's Prout doesn't sit in isolation. It's a continuum of thought. And even Adam Smith had a go at it. Adam Smith's most famous work was during his lifetime, was his work on the origins of morality. So he was trying to do what P.R. Saka succeeded in doing. He's trying to define, what is it to be a human being? Then what sort of economy would be most efficient? And then the work that he didn't complete in his lifetime, which was published afterwards, was a work on politics. An efficient political system based on his understanding of the human condition. And for Adam Smith, in his book on morality, he said the main driver in the human condition is the God-given desire for empathy. It wasn't about greed. It was about understanding other human beings and being understood by other human beings. And so for Adam Smith, that was the key to the human condition. And it was God-given, which shows how much the capitalists have just picked and chosen from what he actually said to get to a position where greed is good, and the invisible hand, which was originally the invisible hand of providence, meaning God will sort it out, even if you are super greedy, becomes greed is good, and everyone endeavoring to work for their own self-interest will produce a positive result. That's not what he was saying at all. The exciting thing about what we're doing in New Zealand with the Progressive Party is that, as I said to Lisa, New Zealand has access to those indigenous cultures from the Pacific and from the Maori, and also across the ditch from the Aboriginal culture. And because we're a new country and we have a more open perspective, an open way of thinking, our traditional religious origins, like Christian or Buddhist, we have the ability to interpret that in a progressive way as well. Because if you look at what Jesus said in the Bible about the human condition, it's exactly what we're talking about in Prout. It's exactly what I was talking about. So there is that tradition that exists already, and Bubba has really just nailed it as the latest contributor. And the exciting thing about Prout also, and about the Progressive Party, is that the last complete economic theory before our Prout political theory, economic theory, was the communists. And that was way back in 1988 that came out. And since then, there's been nothing new. Nothing, no substantial new complete economic theory until P.R. Saka arrived on the scene.
So I just want to.
So super exciting.
Just want to.
And
Montage, just want to say we've got of our original time, we've got less than 3 minutes, so we might have to.
Oh, right.
So I mean, Harry Dave has indicated he has to go, but I'm certainly keen to listen to you. As
right. Okay. No worries.
Voice to speak. So if anybody has to go.
Well, I just wanted to wind up. That's super exciting.
Yeah, no, go ahead, keep going.
Okay. Good. So yeah, it's really an historical moment, the whole Progressive Party. And the Progressive Party in New Zealand is a historical moment, because we have these other elements in our culture already that can support the ideas that we're promoting. And that's one thing that I found at this talk that I gave, or that I was part of, this candidates meeting. 2 people came up to me, 2 gentlemen, not connected, and they both said, you know, we really believe in what you're saying. And they also said that you should join one of the major political parties so that you could have a say. But the thing is that people understand where we're coming from. I mean, I explained to them why I wasn't going to. But people understand where we're coming from, and they want that. And
you explained it very well, too.
Yeah, it's great, Maritosh.
Does anybody have any, so that's basically all of the scheduled speakers. Does anybody have anything to add or any questions you'd like to ask?
Maritosh, when you were asked to join a main political party and you said you explained why you weren't going to, what was your explanation? I'm interested in that.
My explanation is that because I explained to them that I had worked for the Greens Party on 6 separate election campaigns with their leaders, and that they all have the same materialistic basis to their economic theories. And so they can't actually solve the problems that we face at the moment. It's only the Progressive Party that has a real answer. And it's because we address that issue of what it is to be a human being. Because we have that holistic perspective, that we can actually come up with policies that will solve the massive problems that we're approaching. We've just got into. You know, we have a pandemic, we have a global economy that's in crisis, we have global climate change knocking on our door. All those things can't be solved with unsustainable materialistic perspective.
So would it be appropriate now to distinguish ourselves from the other parties by emphasizing this, I don't know if you'd call it spiritual, but the spiritual component of Prout as a basis?
Definitely, that's what I've been doing.
Economic theory as opposed to the other parties, or as distinguished to the other parties?
Definitely, that's exactly what I've been doing.
Great. All right, Harideva, is that the kind of like the approach that you're taking? You're emphasizing the spiritual component, or well, whether you're calling it spiritual or not, are you emphasizing that component in general?
The thing that is fundamental to my mind is that holistic dimension that means that we have got we're taking into account something that the materialist society that we live in has ignored. Yeah, so the need for that new model which is distinguished by that holistic approach is essentially at the heart of what I see us offering.
So you could call it holistic rather than spiritual, to kind of not put too many people offside, but they might think, oh, spiritual, it's whatever. So yep. Is that what you're saying, that you say holistic as opposed to materialistic? Yeah. But then of course you'd have to define holistic, because some people would say, oh, wholemeal bread or holistic food or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess that would need more information. Yeah.
Because it has to be holistic. You can't ignore the physical, you can't ignore the psychological. You've got to have the whole pramic package.
Yeah. So we'd be emphasizing the three aspects: physical, psychic, and spiritual. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And it's there in our logo, which is beauty.
In the logo?
Yep. For the party. We have a triangle in our logo which represents those three things.
Okay, great. Fantastic.
Anybody else like to comment or question or share? I see we have Pradeep and Manju. We also have Kavita, Prelin, Dada Jitendrananda.
Yeah, Namaskar, Dada. I just want to add, on my own spiritual journey, I'm an auditor and an accountant, and I woke up realizing I'm working in a capitalistic system, and which happened in 2016, and for a couple of years I was lost, working as an accountant and working for capitalists, so to say. Recently I've found how to contribute or make my contribution was to start my own accounting firm promoting Prout principles. So I've registered a name called Alternative Accounting, which I'm going to be trying to push Prout principles to businesses and try and get those cooperatives going. And yeah, because there's a lot of people that's waking up to this idea that capitalism is out, and the accounting firms that are out there are all under capitalist principles, and you're going with the Progress principle, and you need advice or direction. You ain't going to get it from a capitalistic accountant. So I'm hoping this might make a contribution, or other people who are looking for some direction or some that this might be of some help.
That's
Have you looked
inspiring.
into the quadruple bottom line?
Sorry,
have you looked into the concepts around quadruple bottom line?
Yes, I have heard about it, but I'm still in the early stages and need to put all these ideas in place and to see how I'm gonna kind of approach it, because there's a lot of people who will be not too keen on idea where you are not promoting capitalism, because most people want profit for myself.
Yeah.
Prelin, can I suggest one other thing? That I could imagine that there'd be other accountants who've got the same sort of existential dilemma that you've confronted so courageously, I think. I mean, maybe it'd be worth reaching out to the accounting fraternity and saying, telling your story, as it were, or providing, saying, look, if you want some ideas as to how to address this, this has been my experience.
Yeah, I'll be keen to pick your brain on a few ideas once I'm ready to get this going.
Excellent, fantastic.
And can I make also one more suggestion? Because we talk about Protest principle, but under capitalist society, most people do their shopping and stuff on a Saturday midday. So maybe if we have future events, there's a lot of people that's not available on a Saturday, because shopping and school kids and sports and all these things. So maybe for a better turnout or more contribution from members, maybe a more appropriate time when more people might be able to attend.
So are you suggesting later on, like maybe after 6 or something like that?
I actually don't know what much might be a good day, because people go out on a Saturday night. We following the spiritual life, we might not go much out on a Saturday night to pubs and dinners and stuff like that. But people either during the day they're doing shopping and the school activities, in the evening they're getting family over on a Saturday night, so Saturday might not be a good day, my opinion, but I don't know about a Sunday. Sunday morning might be more appropriate, or Sunday afternoon.
Right, anybody got anything further to add? Weary.
Where are you based, Kavita?
Namaskar. I'm from Brisbane. I'm quite new, so I'm listening and I'm learning. Like, I'm not new to Anand Marga, like philosophy, but to Prout, I would say. So I'm here to learn, and yeah.
Kavita, I'm isolated in your fair city at the moment.
Sorry, where? I missed it.
I'm under managed isolation in your fair city at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Can we pick up some Progressive Party t-shirts from you then?
Oh, actually, I left them all in New Zealand. That was a bad move.
If you want to order one through the website, I can send them to you.
No, definitely. Monato should have one to stroll down Bondi Beach wearing the T-shirt. That'd be certainly worth doing.
I've got a couple, but I haven't got any extras.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get some from the website.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we've really got our act together as usual.
Dada Jitendrananda, have you looked on our website and seen that you're featured on it?
No, I looked at the website about a month ago or
Yeah.
2 weeks ago. I didn't see that I'm featured on it. No. What am I?
We've got your link to your TED talk on it.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
Yeah.
I think I remember seeing that. Yeah. Oh, I'm happy to
Good
be
work.
there. I'm happy to be part of the movement. As I said, Hari Devaji, if there's anything I can do while I'm here, let me know.
Don't forget to join up.
I think I have. I must have.
Good.
Yeah, through the website, you mean?
Yeah, but also there's we need those 500 members for registration.
Okay, well let me know how to do that. And
so there's
also,
another form for
and
the
also
Electoral Commission.
For the first time in my life, I will vote.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Okay.
While I'm here.
So is that whole procedure available on the website? All the forms and everything that you need, are they available there on the website? Or links?
I just need to confirm. Certainly, joining is there, which means that people pay either $20. It covers 3 years, incidentally. $20 for to register if you're employed, or people who haven't got employment, it's $10. If it's not possible, if it doesn't also require you to actually fill in a form with your name and etc., that is the step that we will definitely be taking to ensure that that we've got that basic requirement covered.
Okay. So if I go on the website, I can join the party.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. But we also need that. We also need that other form as well, Hari Dave, the Electoral Commission form.
That's one that I'm not sure whether it's actually on the website yet. I haven't. I need to check with our webmaster just to confirm that. But if it's not, what I anticipate is that we would,
if we can do it,
we'd send the form out to people who've already registered.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
So do you need to be a citizen to register or something? Or?
Sorry,
not as a party member, but as part of the 500, I think.
I mean, people can join, but the critical thing for our registration as a party for the Electoral Commission is that those joining have to be able to vote in New Zealand.
So we've got a New Zealand passport, and although we live in Brisbane, I'm not sure what the procedure is. Can we still vote?
Yeah, get onto the election website.
Yeah.
And then the voting website, and then sign up, and you can vote in the election.
Okay.
Part of the 500.
All right. That might be a good place to wrap it up here. Shall we end with a little kirtan?
Sorry, can I just ask one more question? How many more members do you need to register?
About 480,
Okay.
I'd say.
Not that many.
Is there a deadline when you need to get that number by?
Within 3
So
years.
tell your friends.
Yeah, we got quite a bit of New Zealand family, Australia and Sydney and Melbourne. So
Fantastic. Get on to them.
Is that Kamalesh?
Yeah, sorry, I'm extremely late. At the very end, I arrived.
Namaskar.
Kirtan, would you like to sing it?
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Babanam ki, Babanam ki, Babanam ki, Babanam ki, Babanam ki, Babanam ki, Babanam Baba